Hey guys, this is Rich from Phoenix Furniture Restorations. Welcome back to my channel and another video. So I got this beautiful walnut 3-drawer chest of drawers off of Facebook Marketplace for, I believe it was $25. Now, as beautiful as this piece is, there is quite a bit of damage on top. As you can see here, all those white rings and marks. My guess is that they probably were storing some plants or something of the sort on top, but I'm hoping that with a little bit of sanding and some oxalic acid that those marks will come out. Now the rest of the piece is in pretty decent shape. The finish is still failing, but definitely not as bad as the top was. Now I thought these pulls were going to be brass or something of the sort, but they're actually just spray painted metal. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to be keeping those yet or replacing them or maybe respraying them, but I'll figure that out as I go. Now just looking inside the drawers, they are made of oak. And oak was used a lot actually in the construction of drawer boxes just because of its strength, durability, and resistance to rot and moisture. Specifically white oak. Now I just absolutely love these beautiful drawer faces, which is a walnut wood grain. And walnut has to probably be my favorite wood. You just get so much variety of beautiful wood grain and color, and it's my favorite. So anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy this transformation. So I'm just going to label my new solo cup here just for my hardware so I don't lose them. And I'm going to begin taking the hardware off. Now, when I first got this piece, when I first saw the picture of it, I was hoping that the hardware was going to be either brass or something of the sort, but I took a closer look and realized that it's just spray painted metal. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to polish these up to a nice shine, but I can always add new hardware, or worst case scenario, I could just spray paint them. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to show it, but I did clean this piece down with a degreaser. I cleaned the entire outside. I'm going to save the inside for a little bit later when I get to that part. I know some people say that you don't really have to clean a piece if you're going to be scraping or stripping it, but I like to make sure that my pieces are very thoroughly cleaned, just so when I sand, I don't grind any of that stuff into the wood grain, which can definitely have a negative effect when you put your finish on. So I know that scraping can be a little intimidating for some people who are just starting out doing this, but all it takes is a little bit of practice and some hand-eye coordination, and you get the hang of it pretty quickly. It's really not that difficult. All you want to do though is you want to make sure that you're keeping the blade completely flat against the wood while pushing down and putting a constant pressure downwards. I usually hold the carbide scraper at about a 45-degree angle while I'm pulling it, and using a slow, steady, but constant motion with each pass. I really hope I explained that well enough. And you can see better here that one stain went right through the finish and is deep into the wood fibers. So I'm really hoping with some oxalic acid and just a little bit of sanding that'll come out. Now coming up to the edge here, I like to scrape almost all the way to the edge. And then I'll leave a little bit, maybe about an inch or so, and then I'll come in on a 45-degree angle and just scrape the rest away. And I do this because, especially around the edges, it's very easy to gouge the wood, so you want to go very gently and on a little bit of an angle. You don't want to go completely 90 degrees because you don't want to pull against the grain. But like, I don't know, a 45-degree angle or so, and just get the rest of that off. Now I'm going to start here with a fairly high grit, starting with a 180 grit just to get the rest of that finish off, and also to prepare the wood for some oxalic acid. Now, if you're new to sanding and you're having some trouble with getting some pigtail swirls, or you're just not really getting the nice smooth finish that you're looking for, it could be because of a couple different things. You want to always make sure that you're holding the sander flat, level with the surface that you're sanding. You don't really want to put too much pressure on the sander. That can definitely cause the pigtail swirls. You want to kind of let the sander do all the work. If you move too fast for the sander too, that could be a problem. You want to move about 1 inch per second, which is the recommended speed that you should be using your sander. And also, make sure you're climbing up through your grits properly. So like, for example, if I was starting at a 120 grit, I would go 120, 150, 180, and then 220. Alright, so it's time for some oxalic acid. Oxalic acid is basically just a wood bleach, and you take some, it comes in a powdered form. You just take some and I usually put it into hot water. And I really should be wearing gloves here. I don't know why I'm not. Apparently I forgot. But you definitely want to always wear gloves when you're handling this stuff. I usually pour the powder into the water until the point to where it stops absorbing into the water. And you can see here that there's a little bit left on the bottom, so that's perfect. I usually use a chip brush to apply it. I've seen other people use towels, but whatever way you choose to do it, you just want to make sure that you get the product onto the wood, and I'll usually kind of brush over the same spot a couple times because that oxalic acid continues to absorb into the wood, which gives it a better chance of getting the stains out. And you can see there's a stain there. There's a bunch of different stains all over. There's that big one right there. So I'm hoping that this round of oxalic acid works, but if it doesn't, I can always do another coat. You shouldn't go over like 3 coats of oxalic acid, because at that point you're pretty much just beating a dead horse and it's not going to work. So in the meantime, while that oxalic acid is drying, I'm going to just start working on the sides, and I'm using my scraper just like I did on the top, just to get that finish off. And you can see it's actually not all coming off that well. And that's because my scraper actually isn't too sharp. I have to give it a little bit of a sharpening. So I'm struggling a little bit right now, but it's coming off. It's just taking a little bit longer than it normally would. But in my next video, I'm actually going to show you guys how I sharpen my scrapers. So stay tuned for that. And you can also see, like right here in a couple different shots, I'm actually wearing my respirator. You don't have to wear a respirator when you're scraping, but at least wear a mask, just because there's a lot of fine dust and fine particles that shoot up into the air, and it's very easy to breathe those in. So you want to wear some kind of protection. And now for the trim area on the side, I'm just going straight in with my sander. I'm not using any stripper or scraper or anything, just because it's solid wood, so I'm not worried about going through veneer or anything like that. Alright, so my oxalic acid is completely dry, so I'm going to come in with a wet paper towel, like soaking wet, and I'm going to rinse that off. And you want to rinse off the oxalic acid like very thoroughly. I usually rinse it off about 3 times using a new paper towel every time. And it's important to get all the oxalic acid off, because when you put your finish on, I'm using Odie's oil as my finish, and it's happened to me before where I didn't rinse off enough of the oxalic acid, and a white film actually appeared on my finished piece, which was the oxalic acid residue that I didn't get off. So it can have a negative effect on your finished piece. So I'm checking the top now just to see how those stains are doing, and there's still a little bit left, unfortunately. It did get a good amount of the staining out, so that's a good thing. So I'm going to try another round, and I'll see how that works. on to stripping the rest of the piece. I'm going to be using a chemical stripper here, Clean Strips Premium Stripper. And I'm using a chemical stripper just because these little decorative fluted sides over here, I'm not going to be able to scrape them really. So this is definitely the right time to use a chemical stripper. And I'm going to be using it on all of the trim areas. And this stripper works extremely fast. I only let the stripper sit on for, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes. And already you can see right here, the finish is just letting go from the wood, which is a beautiful sight to see. I love it when a finish just kind of completely dissolves like it's doing here. It makes it so much easier to remove. And I'm just using a nylon brush here just to scrub that finish off. And I just wanted to mention really quickly, I know it may be annoying to some who have seen on all my videos so far, because I mention it a lot, but it's very, very important to wear gloves and a respirator and even protective goggles if you have them, safety glasses. I've gotten stripper in my eye before, and that stuff is no joke. So if you're going to do this, just take care and be careful. Then once I scrubbed all the finish off, I'm just going to use a shop towel with some acetone and just scrub all the residue off. You can also use mineral spirits for the same purpose. I just find that for me acetone just works a lot better. So just personal preference. I'm also using some acetone on the top of the piece just because I got a little bit of stripper on the top, so I just want to get all that off. And I'm also kind of hoping that the acetone may take some of the staining out as well, which it actually kind of worked a little bit, so I'm happy I did it. I'm just going to be using this foam pad from Surf Prep, which allows you to sand very detailed and curved surfaces. So I'm just going to pop that on and I'm going to start sanding all the trim work. I just wanted to take a quick second just to thank everybody for watching this video, to thank everybody for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, of course. I absolutely love doing this, and I love the fact that I'm able to share it with everybody. And you guys in the comments have been so great, so I just wanted to say a big thank you. Now this one little corner of the panel, the side panel, was a little bit loose, so I'm just going to try to glue that back down. And I could just try to force some glue in there, but I kind of thought that using a glue syringe would be a little bit better. Now these glue syringes you can get off Amazon, and they come with a bunch of syringes in different shapes and sizes, and they're just great, as well as cheap too, which is a good thing. So I'm just filling up my glue syringe here, and I'm just going to stick that needle right in that crack and fill it up. And a nice glue squeeze out is always a really good thing. Whenever you are doing any repairs with glue, having a good glue squeeze out is a good thing. Just shows that you have enough glue in that joint or that crack. Now I'm just taking some tape just to tape up the hardware holes, just because when I use the stripper on these drawers, I don't want any of that stripper to drip down through there. And I'm just going to start stripping down the drawers. Now after my first round of stripper, I'm just going to add a little bit extra stripper and use a little bit of steel wool and just scrub the remainder of the finish off. And then just like before, I'm going to use some acetone just to clean up whatever residue is left over. Now I'm going to begin sanding the drawers, and I only used one grit on these drawers actually. I just used a 220 grit because I got pretty much 99% of the finish off already, so I didn't really need to go in with any heavier of a grit. Now there were a bunch of little tiny cracks and the little pieces where the veneer was missing, so I just took some wood filler and just filled those up. Now if I had this to do again, I probably would have used walnut colored wood filler, which I have, but it didn't occur to me at the time to use that. And I mean, I'm going to be using Blendall sticks and some brush tip graining markers later just to color match, but you know, hindsight's always 20/20. My wood filler is dry, so I'm just going to sand it down, and you always want to be very careful when you're working on veneer, especially on the corners over here, when you're sanding down wood filler, just because it's very easy to go through the veneer, especially on the corners. So you want to just have a light hand and just very gently go in with your sander. Alright, I'm going to do my final sanding of 220, and I'm using the pencil trick, of course. Which is just making some light marks on the wood with a pencil, just so you know where you haven't sanded, and it can also prevent you from sanding too much, especially on veneer like this is. It's very good to use the pencil trick. And as well as sanding down the entire piece with my 220, I'm also going to be sanding down all of the drawer boxes as well. This is something I really like to do on every piece that I work on, sanding down the drawer boxes, just to refresh the wood, knock down any rough spots that are on the drawer boxes that could catch on people's clothes, as well as getting rid of any staining that is inside of the drawer box, which you're going to see I'm going to have to tackle in a second. Now, a lot of the time, just sanding alone, and this is actually an oak veneer on the bottom of the drawer box right here, so I have to be very careful while I'm doing this, but sometimes you get lucky and staining will just come out with a little round of sanding, and luckily in this case, this is exactly what happened. I didn't have to use any stripper or oxalic acid or anything else, it just came out with light sanding. And all of it didn't come out, there was still a little tiny bit left, but I got like 90% of it out, so I'm happy with that. And just a quick little tip, most of the time in these dressers, the bottom of the drawer box will actually be a veneer, so you want to be very careful when you're sanding that you don't go through that veneer. Alright, those drawer boxes are finished, and I'm just going to sand the rest of the inside of the carcass and get ready for staining. Now, just before I start making my stain for this piece, I just want to see exactly what the wood would look like with a finish on it, just so I could match the stain color. And for that, I'm going to use some OD Safer solvent just to put on the top and on the drawer faces. And you can see that beautiful color of the walnut come through. Especially on that first draw with the beautiful, those on either side, those two beautiful burled walnut panels. And this is also going to give the wood a nice cleaning, and you can see on the rag there really quick that you can see all that dust that came off. I really don't want that in my finish, so it's good that I did a quick cleaning. So now I'm just going to make my stain, and I know I've done this many times before, but I'm just going to go through it really quickly. I'm just using some OD Safer solvent. I'm adding my pigments in, which I'm using Walnut and Up in Smoke. And once I got the color that I'm looking for, I'm just going to add some OD's Super Duper Everlasting Oil, give it a really good mix, and then I'm going to just do my little tester board here, and I did a couple different shades, and I'm going to go with this one right here. I think that's the best color out of all of them. I think that'll complement the walnut wood grain pretty nicely. So I'm just going to tape up all the parts that I don't want to get stain on, and I'm going to begin staining. And just like any other stain, I'm going to apply it, let it sit for a little bit, and just wipe it all off. And now to put my finish on, I'm going to be using Odie's oil, as you could probably have guessed. I think Odie's oil is going to bring out the natural beauty of this walnut wood grain. And as you can see, I just cut a marker Merlon pad up into 4 different pieces. And I'm going to just give the Odie's oil a really good mix just to get all those ingredients mixed together well. And I'm going to start applying. And with Odie's oil, little goes a very long way, so you don't need to use a lot. Literally all of this that I'm putting on right here is probably going to do almost the entire top. If you use too much Odie's oil, aside from wasting it and, you know, wasting your money, it's going to make it a little harder to take off when you get to the buffing part. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what Odie's oil is a tung oil-based hard wax oil finish. Completely food safe and non-toxic, which is why I'm able to put this on without any gloves on or even a respirator. I know there are many other finishes I could have used, such as polyurethane, lacquer, shellac, Rubio Monocoat, but this is one of my favorite finishes to use. It just, for me personally, it just brings out the natural beauty of the wood grain, and it's an extremely durable finish as well. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt with all of the buffing that you have to do to get it all off afterwards, but in my opinion, it's worth it. And this is my favorite part right here, putting it on the drawers. That wood grain is just absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to let the Odie sit for about a good hour and a half, and in the meantime I'm going to work on these casters. I'm just spraying them down with some WD-40, and I'm going to let them sit for about 10 minutes as the WD-40 just works on getting whatever rust is on there off. And after 10 minutes you could see it definitely got a good amount of rust off. And I'm just going to give them a good scrub down with this nylon brush just to get any remaining rust off. And lastly, I'm just going to come in with some mineral spirits on a shop towel and just give them a good wipe down. Now the goal here is not to make them look brand new. That's not going to happen. All I wanted to do was just clean them up and make sure that I got them as clean as I could. There's a lot of like pitting in the wheels. They're plastic wheels. I'm guessing nylon. And there's a lot of embedded stuff in those wheels that I just cannot get out. But with the age of this piece, you know, I'm not too worried about it. As long as they're clean, I'm happy. Now for this hardware, as I said in the beginning, this is just spray painted metal. So unfortunately, I can't polish them up to a good shine. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to just clean them down with a degreaser. And I'm using that same nylon brush just to give them a good scrubbing that I used for the casters. And after they're all nice and clean, I'm just going to take them all and dry them down with a shop towel. And then one by one, I'm just going to take them and start sanding them just to create a little bit of micro texture on there for my spray paint to grab onto. And I believe I'm using a 320 grit here. And then after that's done, I'm just going to take my spray paint, which is a metallic gold spray paint, and I'm going to give them a nice coat. And then let them dry in the very, very hot sun. It's almost 100 degrees here today on Long Island, so it's extremely hot. So after doing a couple coats on the hardware, my Odie's is finally ready to be buffed off. Now this is a very important stage of using Odie's oil. After you've let it sit for about an hour, hour and a half, you want to come in and buff everything off. You got to buff every little last bit of residue off the piece. And you know, your arms are probably going to be killing you by the end of it, but in my opinion, I think it's definitely worth it as a finish. And I never really show it, but I always usually put a coat of wood butter, Odie's wood butter, on the top of my pieces, just for some added protection. Now the Odie's wood butter is basically very similar to the Odie's universal oil, except it just has a higher wax content. So it's very good as an added protective layer. And for my final step, I'm going to be using some Howard Feed and Wax in the drawers. And I'm just using a rag to apply it. And one thing I'm not going to be showing, just because I thought I recorded it, but apparently I didn't hit record on my phone, so it didn't record, is me just doing the touch-up with some graining markers just on the few spots that needed it. But that's okay, you'll see it in the reveal. Hopefully you won't be able to see it in the reveal, because hopefully I did a good enough job of hiding it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. To everybody who's made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy this kind of content, consider liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing. I'm still a new channel, so it's all very much appreciated. If you have any tips for me in how to make these videos any better, or things that you'd like to see in another video, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you have to say. So anyway, without any further ado, enjoy the reveal.